Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word. Now earlier this week, F1 pundit Tony Jardine said that he believed Lewis Hamilton could well make the move to Ferrari when his Mercedes contract expires at the end of 2020. And to be fair, it's a theory that has been drifting around the sport for a while now, and it got me thinking, how likely is it that the five-time world champion will make the switch to the Scuderia in the future? First off, yes, this is something that would usually end up in a news video, but I felt like it was a topic well worth its own video as it is something that has cropped up quite often in the past. But anyway, let's get into it. I think this all very much depends on a number of factors. Does Lewis Hamilton want to continue into a new set of regulations? What position are Ferrari going to be in at the end of 2020? And if you've got Charles Leclerc delivering, do you really want to bring in a clear number one for a couple of years or continue to build around him? I mean, I suppose you could even ask, will Ferrari even want him? The latter one for me, though, is easy to answer. Yes, they absolutely would. Any team on the grid would love to snap him up, and Mercedes will do everything they can to keep hold of him if he chooses to continue. I've got no doubt on that whatsoever. As for the other factors, they are much harder to answer because, well, we just don't know. An obvious statement alert, it's all pure speculation. I've said before that I get the feeling he will retire at the end of 2020. He has got a lot of things he wants to pursue, his music career for example, and as I talked about last winter, brand Hamilton is something he's really wanting to push. However, if you then flip that around, Ferrari will be a great place for him to be if he wants to build that brand. This has all turned a little bit businessy, but I hope you get what I'm trying to say. Basically, big name in Lewis Hamilton, big name in Ferrari, it all seems like a match made in heaven. Even if he likes that idea though, does he really want to stick around and go through another rules reset if he's only going to walk away 2 years later? There could potentially be a lot of upheaval in 2021 and F1 might be in a very different position as a sport. I mean, I doubt we'll see as much change as Liberty Media are pushing for, but there will still be a fair bit. Go back through history and look at what these sorts of changes can do to teams and indeed drivers. The changes in 2009 and 2014 mixed the grid up massively initially, and some of the big teams really did struggle. I guess what I'm saying is, can we see Lewis Hamilton willing to go through a 2009 again, for example? I'm not so sure. The thing is though, it's Ferrari. Just about every driver wants to drive for them, and the draw that team has is incredible. They are steeped in history and are the most successful team in Formula 1. They are also probably the best known and most recognisable team in the paddock. You know, even new fans tuning in will more than likely instantly identify a Ferrari. So it would not come as any surprise to me if Lewis Hamilton turned around and said, do you know what? Yeah, I fancy going one of those red cars. Another factor that will come into play is where Ferrari are at that point. Obviously, this is massively hypothetical, but what if Honda do deliver a good engine and Mercedes remain strong and Ferrari end up a distant third over the next 2 seasons? I suppose in a similar vein to the 2021 changes, does Hamilton want to go to a team that is not challenging for titles and try to build them up? In terms of his career, time isn't exactly on his side. Okay, he may well stick around until he's 40 like Kimi Raikkonen might. However, when his Mercedes deal is up in 2 years, that only potentially leaves the world champion 4 or 5 seasons, 2 of which could be spent pouring the effort into trying to rebuild a team. I'm not totally convinced he would fancy that. There is something else that crops up a lot when it comes to talking about Lewis Hamilton's future, and that is, what about a swap between him and Sebastian Vettel? This is something I pretty much dismissed a year ago, but things have changed massively at Ferrari since, and Vettel did have a difficult 2018. Look at it this way, Charles Leclerc is still young and may well be the Scuderia's future, the driver they want to build around. Equally though, they are desperate to end their title drought, and so if Vettel fails to deliver the title this season or next, it could be the case that they look elsewhere, and with his contract expiring, Hamilton would surely be top of that list. From a Mercedes point of view, if they do lose their prized asset, replacing him with a 4-time world champion would be a very smart move. And a fresh setting with less pressure could well see Vettel thrive and find form again. Looking at the options for Mercedes, unless he has a phenomenal 2019, Bottas is probably not number one driver material at a title contending team, and I'm not convinced at all that they would see an Ocon-Russell partnership as the right way to go. They are both young, and even 2 years down the line, there would not be an awful lot of experience there. So Mercedes would likely look to find someone with experience to fill that void. And also from a business side of things again, Vettel is German, and I'm sure that would make the deal even sweeter for the Silver Arrows. Again, 12 months ago, I really doubted that this would happen. Now, though, and the more I think about it, I can see it as a real possibility. As is the case with this whole discussion, though, a lot of things would have to fall into place to make it happen. Of course, there is also Max Verstappen. He could well be someone that Mercedes look at, especially if he becomes a title challenger. And let's face it, as old as this next line is going to make me feel, come 2021, the Dutchman will be considered an experienced driver and possibly a better long-term option for the Silver Arrows. More on that, though, in a video coming later this month. It's all well and good talking about where Ferrari might be in 2 years and whether their position would appeal to Lewis Hamilton, but I suppose there is always the question of where Mercedes are come mid-2020. What if they end up as the third fastest and appear to be in decline? Hamilton is less likely to stick around in the twilight of his career if he's only fighting for 5th and 6th place with the odd podium thrown in. Of course, there would have to be a huge swing in fortunes for that to happen, but it's not all going to depend on what Ferrari do. To summarise then, do I think Lewis Hamilton will end up at Ferrari in a couple of years' time? Well, as I've already said, Ferrari are one hell of a draw for most drivers, and so if the opportunity were to arise, I'm sure it would be tough for him to turn down. Then again, if they are struggling, that pool may not be enough to convince the Brit to head to Italy. All in all, I'm not so sure. I've always felt like 2020 would be the point where he calls it a day. I'm not trying to repeat myself too much, but he has a lot of other projects that he wants to pursue, and so the distraction of having to push through yet another rules reset or rebuilding a team may not appeal. It will also come down to Hamilton's hunger, of course, that fire that pushes him on to keep racing. If that disappears, which at the moment, to be fair, doesn't seem at all likely, I can't see him sticking around. Some drivers do, but I don't think that would appeal to Lewis Hamilton. Personally, I would love to see him racing in the red of Ferrari and think it would be a move that would suit both parties very nicely indeed. However, although I definitely consider it more of a possibility than I did a year ago, as of right now, my gut feeling is still that he will either retire at the end of 2020 or, if that fire still burns strong, he will stick around at Mercedes for another couple of years. He's demonstrated a lot of loyalty to the Silver Arrows and that has been reciprocated. This is Formula 1 though, it's a cutthroat sport, and what is loyalty at the end of the day? If Mercedes struggle and Ferrari become the team to beat, the situation could change very quickly. That is it for this video then, and in the comments section down below, let me know your thoughts on Lewis Hamilton's Formula 1 future. Can you see him making the move to Ferrari? Do you think a swap with Sebastian Vettel will happen, or are you expecting the Brit to retire at the end of 2020? Now, I will be back soon with more content as ever, but in the meantime, you can follow me over on social media. Links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course to Discord are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.